I'm Margaret Ryan with Clean Skies News. The concept of small modular reactors isn't brand new, but it has recently attracted new attention from Wall Street and even from Energy Secretary Steven Chu. One of the companies that sees promise in these systems is NuScale Power, based in Oregon. They're offering nuclear stations built in 45 megawatt modules, each an independent little reactor. And here to talk about this technology is Paul Lorenzini, CEO of NuScale Power. Paul, welcome to Clean Skies News.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about the origin of this design. Where does it come from? Who developed it?
It was developed at Oregon State University about 10 years ago under a contract from the Department of Energy. And at that time, the thought was we could use small reactors to serve developing countries, remote locations, places where large reactors wouldn't fit. And so there are actually about 50 different small reactors that have been developed over the past 10 or 15 years in other countries and in the United States. What makes us different is we saw an application that was more conventional. If you take a bunch of small reactors and you bring them together, you can make a large plant, and maybe it's a different way to build big nuclear plants.
And that's what NuScale is doing. You're looking at kind of packing these modules together into a larger unit.
Yeah, our concept, we will serve developing countries and we will serve remote locations, but our base concept is to take a number of these modules, group them together, cluster them in a single plant, and build a plant that gives the operator, the owner, the flexibility to build whatever size plant they want to build, and maybe add to the plant capacity over time as their load grows.
Now, we hear about a lot in nuclear power about the economies of scale, the large plants that are out there, and that are the plants that are actually being planned for building are all 1,000, 1,100, some of them up to 1,600, 1,700 megawatts. And we hear people say you have to have those kinds of scales to make the economics work. What do you tell them?
Well, for years that's been the belief. If you take a nuclear plant and you make it bigger, you get an economy of scale. What we saw was that if you started with a clean piece of paper, and if you said, how can we capture the economies of small, would you do it completely differently? So our design is very, very simple. It's factory manufactured, so we don't have the construction going on site. And by accomplishing the improvements we get from the efficiencies and the factory construction, we actually have a plant that is as cheap as large plants. That's the key to everything. Being able to hit a price point that's competitive with large plants was something people didn't believe we could do. We now believe we can do that.
Okay. So, but in your design, people can pick a lower megawattage than 1,000 megawatts, or they can put it in smaller units. Can they put it in over time? Can you put in some now, some later?
Actually, the base plant that we would build is a 540 megawatt plant, but the operator could install it as a 270 megawatt plant, expandable to 540. And even with a 270 megawatt plant, they wouldn't have to put all the modules in at once. They could put in half and then expand within that plant. So it gives a lot of flexibility to the owner.
As far as safe operation is concerned, does it matter how many of these you have in place? Are they all independent little reactors?
Each one is independent. Each one has its own turbine generator, and it operates as its own separate independent power plant. And they're very, very safe. We achieve the safety by the simplicity. It's natural circulation cooled, so we don't have pumps, we don't have pipes, we don't have pumps that fail, pipes that break. And we've actually been able to demonstrate that we get about a factor of 10 to 100 improvement in the safety factors that you see in conventional plants, which are already very, very safe.
Well, how often does this have to be refueled? And how do you refuel it?
It's refueled every 2 years, and we basically, if you can imagine, we have our nuclear reactor in a pool of water. We disconnect it and we take it in that pool to a separate room. We open it up, we refuel. It takes about 10 days, and we connect it back up and put it back in the facility. We're able to refuel a single reactor while the rest of the plant operates, so we don't have to shut the whole plant down to do refueling.
So it's more like a coal plant. You can keep multiple boilers working,
Exactly.
turning the turbines.
Great example.
Okay. Where are you? NRC design certification. That's pretty neat. Necessary to build in a country in the U.S. these days. Have you applied for certification?
We are in discussions with the NRC as we speak, and we've told them that we want to submit our application for certification in 2012. We've had 4 pre-application meetings with them. We have a schedule for submitting some pre-application documents, so we are engaged in conversations with them as we speak.
If you get this certification, who are your potential customers?
We have potential customers in the United States. They would be our first. But we know from conversations we've had with different countries, if we had a certified design right now, we couldn't keep up with the demand. There are a number of countries out there that are really excited about what we're doing. They're just waiting for the plant to be certified.
Can you name any of them or tell me any characteristics that make them excited about this plant?
Well, I wouldn't be able to name a country that has told us specifically, but we know countries like Jordan, for example. They've talked about building nuclear plants, and they don't have a grid that could support a large plant. Countries like in the Middle East, in Thailand, other countries in the Far East. There are just a number of places in the world where their grid is not so big that they could use a 1,000 megawatt plant, and their load is not that big. So smaller plants really work for them.
Okay, well, Paul Lorenzini of NuScale Power, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I'm Margaret Ryan. You're watching Clean Skies News.